it's hard to argue that the Leinster-Munster isn't the best derby in the world.
Where else is selling 80,000 tickets?
For that reason alone, that's why I kind of say that.
And it's the fourth most popular sport in Ireland.
Yeah.
It's not even number one.
Yeah.
I mean, Sarries have a dig, don't they, when they've been at Tottenham and Wembley?
Yeah, but it's a hard sale.
Yeah.
It's a hard sale.
I mean, that is proper rugby. Proper
history.
People. Yeah. There's massive rivalry there.
And how it's shifted over the years, like Munster with the team and the red and the blue.
Yeah.
Les Mis.
And the match doesn't even mean it. What we on round 5 of the URC? It's not
round 4.
Round 4.
Round 4.
And with that, that's the good thing. We'll talk about Leinster, and this isn't meant to be a throwaway comment, that they're actually taking the URC serious.
Yeah.
And they could, with the squad they've got, they could limp their way and still be in the knockout stage at the end. But I think there must be a little bit of a reset within Leinster to be like, right, we need to get back on the tools here.
Yeah.
And not treat every game as a big game. But the week before Benetton, we kind of joked about it. They
normally send the shags, don't they?
They do, don't they?
Yeah.
And maybe they're now making it more jeopardy on each game and being like, right, these big moments now, we need to go and win. We need to go away from home. We need to get back on the tools.
Yeah.
And they were brilliant. I thought Caelan Doris, 21 tackles. He's probably the best number 8 in the world right now. And RG Snyman, sorry to go there, but the difference he's going to make to that team when they get to the big games. Sorry, Munster, I don't mean it like that. When they get to the knockout games, and if Geordie Barrett turns up fit, be interesting how he fits in.
I forgot about him as well. Geordie Barrett.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah. And do you know what? Is he the missing link, that the reason they haven't gone on and won finals? He's certainly going to add to them, isn't he?
Was that the Will Skelton? When he was playing, just the big man and more fall for Toulouse. That difference of being able to get over the gain line, then power plays when you carry in. RG Snyman in the line-out, and the line-out was a bit of an Achilles heel for Munster at the weekend.
Have you got that one-hander in you that we've seen?
I've done that before. I've actually done a one-hander like that.
You have.
Rob, dig it out at some point, over the back.
Yeah.
Swear.
Behind the back.
Behind the back
head.
as well.
Yeah.
So just, impromptu, like Jamie George from the Mall.
Yeah, he's got hands like shovels.
But he's a freak of nature.
Yeah.
And that's the thing with Leinster and with Ireland and North Hemisphere teams. You don't make people that big.
No.
And to have him in your ranks, fit.
Yeah.
And that's it. People like Munster, he got booed when he came off, and he got booed when his name came. He wanted to stay at Munster, and they chose John Klein over him. And I'm sure that
money was in it, and injury profile.
Yeah, of course.
And Munster were very good to him. And he wanted to be. I think people are making more of it than it probably is. He wanted to stay in Ireland, and he wanted to stay at Munster, but the economics of it didn't work for Munster. And obviously Leinster have got cash galore, haven't they?
Mm.
But also, it's not his fault, is it? It wasn't his fault that those injuries occurred. I think there was one that maybe, did he fall in a fire or something?
Yes, they all got burned, didn't they? Damien Dale ending.
Which didn't help. But, he gave everything to Munster when he was fit. And Munster were very good to him. It's just so hard when you go to your nearest and dearest rivals and you score a try on half-time to get the bonus point. You knocked it on after 12 minutes or whatever it was that led to Hugo Keenan's try, but the ref missed that one. But he's a great player, and he'll be a massive asset to Leinster for the whole season.
And clearly a good bloke, because you think of the rivalry that Ireland and South Africa now have, and he's at Munster, a well-liked man in the team.
Do you think Razzie sent him there?
Yeah. He's gone to Leinster, and you can see he's a well-liked guy amongst the ranks.
Yeah.
And when it's all said and done, that's what it's about.
Yeah.
Bernard Jackman came out and said that the gap's growing, isn't it? Kind of between Munster and Leinster, and Munster have only won 2 of the last 15 games. Is it a good or a bad thing for Irish rugby, like as a whole, to have the majority of the island first 15 from the one province, or do you think it's better to have them spread out across the 4?
You could argue for both, couldn't you? But that's a good stat, Rob. Munster have only won 2 of their last 15, but one of the ones they won was a big one, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it was the semi-final at the Aviva. So they've won the biggest of the games that they've played recently, I suppose. And the gap is growing purely on the fact that everyone resembles, and rightly so, the Ireland team with Leinster because there's so many of them in it. Does it work for Irish rugby? There'll be some massive things where you can say yes, because the whole front row normally is Porter, Sheehan Tyg Furlong, right? So you're playing together regularly. That's a massive plus, but it hasn't led them down to win the World Cup, and I don't want to bring that up again. So there's huge strengths to it and positives, but also you also know that Bundy Aki's at Connacht. You've got Tyg Byrne, who's always picked for Ireland, and rightly so, from Munster, and there's other players pushing. Craig Casey's the backup 9 now, I think.
Jack Crowley at 10.
Crowley at 10. That's the big one, and we've seen Frawley really come up and stand up and now be a massive option to challenging Crowley as 10. But you've got your centre pairing is normally a Leinster centre pairing, isn't it? Henshaw and Ringrose, but that might change with it.
Jamie Osborne's very good.
Mate,
as well. Very good.
Yeah.
He's always looked very good. But he was class at the weekend.
Your back threes a lot of the time has been Leinster, but that familiarity works, but also, is it good for the game? Because there's obviously and it's just sort of reading between the lines, there's a bit of ill feeling around Ireland from the other provinces towards Leinster because they get all the best opportunities of having all the best players because of the systems they have, because of all the monies in Dublin, and it doesn't filter necessarily down to the other provinces. But they kind of like that as well, right? Because they're like, well, fuck that. We're going to back ourselves. And Munster went to Leinster to win in the semi-finals. Connacht have massively improved. I know they won it a few years back under Pat Lam, quite a few years back. But it's a great system they have, but also it is pushed towards Leinster being the best team because it's the capital city. There's all the money there. There's more money there than anywhere else. And, their school system produces all these players. And therefore, it's a continual flow of brilliance, I suppose. But you're only judged as brilliant if you win trophies. And we all know that's the big question mark over Leinster. Munster scrum was good.
It was, yeah. Yeah, I mean, Munster were good, physical.
Yeah.
Like they some good players. Thought Mike Haley at 15 was good, but
they just made a few errors, didn't they?
Yeah.
And then it compounded stuff.
But on the scrum, that's
not legal.
No, it's not legal. But if there is one small kink in all this glory for them, it could be the scrum.
There you go.
Porter got pinged a couple of times, didn't he?
He does get pinged. There's a little bit of Mako Vunipola about
Who's
Andrew
the best
Porter.
loosehead in the world?
Who's the best loosehead in the world?
It's got to be a South African.
Someone from South Africa.
Oxenche.
Well, best scrummager in the world
Yeah.
is Oxenche.
He'll be playing for Leinster next year.
Cyril Mielby
Yeah.
as well. I put Porter up there as well, but he
Yeah.
does get pinged in the scrum.
Yeah.
And without going back, but you went back, the quarterfinal, the scrum was a big issue against New Zealand, who aren't seen as a scrummaging team.
I'll tell you what, they can scrummage now. You wait to see New Zealand in November. Their scrum is monstrous.
Big shout out to Jason Ryan. Well, that was, again, looking for Achilles' heels. The All Blacks probably in the years gone by didn't prioritise. They definitely didn't line out. They just got in there and just fucking threw it to whoever and probably wanted to lose it so they could defend.
Yeah.
But the scrum as well, and they've improved massively.
Yeah.
And that's maybe Ireland's one big thing that they need to be razor sharp. And they've got the players, but it's getting the referees on side. Mm-hmm. So it answers your question, Rob, making sure they know if they're going to use this young lad, this Gus McCarthy coming in, he needs time. And that's probably why they brought him back from this emerging island to get him used to being in and around Andrew Porter.
And Chris Busby was not on the side of Munster, the referee.
The big one for me on Saturday was watching Frawley against Crowley.
Yeah.
What do you reckon of that, Goody?
Great battle. Obviously, a lot of front foot stuff for Frawley at 10. He looked class for Leinster. Crowley I was really impressed with, and Casey at 9, playing behind a team with less possession, less front foot ball. And that's where you judge, in my opinion, you judge 10s. Most 10s can look really good, fast ball, disorganised defence. You can pick out options, and you don't always have to pick out the best option or the right option, but it's that flow because you're on the front foot and it's a lot easier. Judge a 10 on a team that hasn't got possession, they're not winning collisions and what they create. I thought Crowley was really good. It's going to become a big debate, right? Who should start at 10 for Ireland? I think Crowley is still the man to go into their games. They play the All Blacks in November. I think the All Blacks is their first game, actually. Ireland's. But Frawley, and you mentioned Osborne as well as a 12, but also plays 10. Frawley is, he dropped the goal, didn't he, to beat the Springboks in the summer. as a 1-2 now, all of a sudden it's gone from everything's about Johnny Sexton and Ireland don't function without him. He's now retired. And finally, these guys are getting the Sexton monkey off the back. Not that that's a bad thing, but they're now sort of flourishing in their own teams and in an environment where it's not, where's Johnny? And that's a real hard thing for some players, but Crowley and Frawley are two proper fly halves. Imagine like all the fly halves in the Leinster squad. I was thinking about this the other day. So you've got Frawley as your first choice probably. Osborne can play there. You've got Harry Byrne. You've got Ross Byrne. You've got Prendergast on the Emerging Ireland Tour, who everyone's talking about as the next big thing as well.
He started for Leinster in the first game of the season, wasn't he?
5 fly halves.
Yeah.
Like, mental.
Exactly.
And they don't talk about, I mean, if you're Prendergast and you've now got Frawley ahead of you, you want to be first choice fly half somewhere. Go to
there was
Ulster.
talk of him going to Connacht.
Yeah, go to Connacht, go to Ulster, but they stay in the Leinster system, don't they? Look at Harry Byrne a few years ago was spoken. I think Brian O'Driscoll said he's the next big thing. He's going to be the one. Where is he now? You know, Ross Byrne's obviously been a backup and been a first choice for Leinster when Johnny's not playing, all that stuff. But it's now like he needs to probably go to France or something.
Yeah, but with Jack Crowley and Kieran Frawley, you look at the All Blacks model where Damien McKenzie, and I know they've been looking at him to start, he's much better off the bench.
McKenzie.
As in world class off the bench.
Yeah.
And maybe the game's changing a little bit now. We saw the Quins Saracens match where they brought on a heavy bench and there's almost the Springboks style bomb squad coming on. I don't think it necessarily matters who's 1 and 2. And it might, because it's a quarterback or your 10.
At 10 it does.
Your 10 key position to start. But what Frawley did off the bench to beat the Springboks with a drop goal, you know that you've got him and he can do that off the bench. And maybe that's for the next 2 or 3 years, or however long Andy Farrell thinks, because you need to stick with the 10. And Biggs was talking about it. You need 10 games or whatever it is in the driving seat. And Jack Crowley's been great. But Frawley off the bench is kind of proven. Does it mean that he's ready to step in now and start? I don't think so, but nonetheless, he's a wicked player. Yeah. Really good.
Good challenge to have for Andy Farrell, right?
Great position to be in.
Yeah.
And before we wrap up there, Roberto, interesting stat, and this is your research, so don't call me out, that Leinster will pocket €1.7 million. How much is that in pounds, Andrew, to the masses?
About 1.4 million quid.
Okay, all right, conversion's pretty decent. But they're going to but they're going to pocket all of that money, and they're not, in capital letters, Rob, going to share it with Munster. So it shows Leinster's dominance,
Wow, Rob, why are you...
Smart business.
Headline.
But no,
well, they have the right to, don't they?
They've got the right to, and they are doing things right at Leinster. That's for sure.
We're talking about Leinster and how great they are. Let's talk about where all these players are coming from.
Where's the money?
Where's the schools? Delighted to say we are joined now by Andy Skehan, the Director of Rugby and Head Coach at St Michael's College in Dublin. He's the brains behind this incredible conveyor belt of talent that comes out of Ireland and Leinster.
Andy, rugby is thriving in Ireland. Some might say the number one sport. All down to you and the school system. That is what we're hearing. Maybe give us a lay of the land.
Well, I mean, the reality is probably it's not the number one sport or anywhere near it, realistically.
Really?
Yeah. Well, Gaelic football is the biggest participation sport by far.
Yeah.
And that's 2 sports in itself. So Gaelic football and hurling. And then soccer would be the number 3 sport. So rugby is definitely a number 4. The one thing it does really well on is the kind of TV ratings. The Irish national team I saw these for 2024 to date. I think the Irish national team featured in 6 of the top 10 positions, or maybe it was 5. And then there was a whole lot of other rugby games featuring in it as well, from the World Cup and stuff like that, and 6 Nations. So it does really well on the kind of viewing figures on TV, but it firmly is the 4th sport in terms of playing numbers.
But everything we're hearing, that the school system in Ireland is a cut above everything. You look at American football in the States, the investment that goes into the colleges. Goody mentioned England. I've spoken about Scotland before with the lack of investment into schoolboy rugby, with all respect. Give us an idea of the investment that goes in there and the collaboration that you've got with Leinster, if any.
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of things that would be a bit different from the English system. So and maybe I'm incorrect, because, I wouldn't have a full kind of view on what goes on over there. We don't have any scholarship rugby players here, so we're not accumulating a side. So generally, I think 90% of our our player base would be within 5 kilometres of the school and 99% within 10 kilometres. So we don't really know what we get, and it's just whatever comes in the year. And that's our mission, to make them a better set of players by the time they leave. So we've got a kind of 6-year high school system here. We field in this school, we field 19 teams from that. We've about 700 boys to field from that, and we play a 230 game season. So we would play right through to the end of March and have kind of our first fixture last weekend in August. And I think that's a little bit different from the English system, where they would play a lot of sevens post-Christmas.
Yeah.
We don't do that. We do have a bit of summer sports as well, but generally a lot of the rugby players will focus on kind of like a rest period, a hypertrophy period, if they're in the kind of serious end of the rugby, because we'd have it broken into kind of 3 tranches, which be your participation level, which is kind of the swell level, your development level, so players who are likely to be in the performance level eventually, and the performance level, which is the level that is the level that produces good players out on the back end of it.
It's interesting because a lot of the schools aren't too far away from each other, are they? I've done some research around Blackrock, St Michael's, yourselves, obviously, Belvedere, Newbridge College. Johnny Murphy is director of rugby at. Remember Harold Bishop, Johnny Murphy?
I know Johnny very well. Yes,
he's director of rugby at Newbridge College, St Mary's, the big boys, not the big boys, the new kids on the block, Gonzaga as well.
Yeah, actually, I think that's kind of like the secret sauce, I think, is the actual proximity of teams to each other, because we can get nearly all our best games are within a 30-minute drive. Now, we do play the big schools from Cork and the big schools up in Belfast, but our most competitive fixtures are right on our doorstep, and there's a huge amount to be said for that. And then when we play the competition games, it's the same. So all the schools are in the kind of locality. So there's real fierce rivalry then. People know what the other school is doing. They know all the players. So in terms of a competition structure, you couldn't really look for a better model. And I think that is a really key ingredient, and it's from the kind of historical setup of those provincial schoolboy competitions. And the other bit is the collaboration from Leinster and the RFU is actually unbelievable, right from the coach education through Decky O'Brien, from the scouting network through Adam Griggs, and then through to the RFU from there. I mean, it's probably best in class. And there's another little probably scenario that they don't have in England, which is if you're in the Leinster province, each player, if he aspires to play the game at a professional level, he wants to play for Leinster. It's not as if he's between Harlequins or Saracens, or that somebody could drag him somewhere else. There's very actual little provincial movement. It's only at the very end when the contract is kind of been signed off on where maybe the overlap from Leinster goes to a different province. So everybody's kind of going through a pretty tight bottleneck, but just to get into the Leinster system here and the Munster system in Munster or in the other 2 provinces, it kind of works similar.
Like, what is the difference with Ireland? Why are you producing so many good players? I'm just trying to get to the bottom of what's going on behind the scenes. Because look, Andy, we hear a lot of things around the systems that are in place, and especially in Leinster, that it's one of the best in the world. And we see in South Africa the amount of players and the size of humans that are coming through. So just trying to get a bit more detail on that.
Yeah. Well, I suppose we're not going to be South African size anytime soon. I don't
think. More Guinness. Drink more Guinness.
I know they start breeding. Mate, RG Snyman's at Leinster now. His kids are going to be Irish when they come through. So just a bit more into the training. So I want to know, like, what are the kids doing at the age of 14, 15?
Look, I feel our difference is the rugby. I don't think it's the S&C, because the S&C is the simplest part of all of it, right? Because you can follow a program that can be mandated or advised from your union. You're going to have the best guys qualified in the world. So that's not going to be too much different from one union to the next. I think culturally, because the schools' proximity to each other, the battle to be the best is obviously very important for all the people involved. So that really drives on every single schoolboy to be the best he can, particularly if he sees himself in the mix with his schoolboy's first team. So I think our competition structure is key, but then the way we approach training is, really detailed. Like, we would record the vast majority of our training, not just our matches. Now, I'm not sure if that's replicated.
From what age?
Across the country. Sorry?
From what age?
Oh, no, like we're talking once a week at under 16, and then our senior team, which would incorporate, 2 or 3 different year groups, that would be kind of every day or nearly every day.
Yeah.
And then we're doing, we're giving good feedback. So train 3 times a day. We do, a statistical breakdown, make sure everything's tagged, individuals, all those type of things. But I don't know who
Impressive.
else is or isn't doing that, but I do think that's why we're very competitive on the world stage. I think you get the bottleneck effect. People want to play, and by the time they come through such a strong competition structure, that they're really ready to play proper rugby when they're 19, 20 years old.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's why the Lions were saying how advanced you are in terms of, you tag in sessions, you tag in every little bit of data, and all the stats are out on the board, aren't they, that the kids can see and learn from. And that's probably one of the biggest differences.
Pod. Rugby pod.